Can you please take your seats so we can begin the meeting?
Sir. Okay. Here's some more non.
Welcome. Let's begin today's meeting and hear the public testimony of non-agenda items. Speakers will have up to 3 minutes to address the board, and no deferral of time is allowed. When you begin speaking, the green light will come on, a yellow light when you have 1 minute left, and when your time's up, the red light will appear and a bell will ring. Please finish your sentence when your time is up. For public non-agenda comment, we have Citizen, Joanne Fields, Dante Foster, and Lisa Berlanga. Please come forward and speak in any order.
I want to speak about student fees, an issue that has been around since 2009. And I want to point out that fees are still going on, and as many times as I've tried to address that issue, it continues to come up over and over again. This young man was not going to play football until his teacher paid for a sports physical, and it changed his life. He's going to be a senior next year, and he's going to have to come up with the money to pay for caps and gowns. That's an issue. There's a case law that's right on point on that. That ended up in the legal office and has still not been resolved. Morse High School, 3 times I've spoken with Harry Shelton. I asked him, have the kids received their money back? That was from the summer of 2012. He said to me 3 times, it's being handled. I said, do you need the names of the kids? He said, no, I have a list of their names. That ended up in the legal office. Same thing with an issue at Mira Mesa and kids being charged fees there. That ended up back in the legal office. It's still in the legal office. Crown Point, kids are having to buy instruments. Now, the principal knew for many years now that it's illegal to require students to buy instruments, but that's what happened. That means that there's scofflaws. There's scofflaws. They're entrusted to follow the laws, all of them, but they're scofflaws. They continued to require kids to procure their own instruments at the cost of several $100s to their parents. So kids can't try out an instrument and have a chance to see if that's something they enjoy because they either don't have the money or find out later they don't want to play that instrument, but they're stuck. They can't try a different instrument. Their parents are upset because they spent all this money for an instrument. That's what public school is about. It's an opportunity for them. This is a $1 billion budget, and still students are being charged for so many things, and I don't understand it. So I'm looking to this board to direct the superintendent to, again, issue a memo advising staff that they're not to break the law, they're not to charge fees. It means they're scofflaws. Scofflaws. Is that the kind of employee we want in our public education system? People who don't think the law applies to them and that they can take advantage of kids who can't do anything about it? Scofflaws.
Mr. President, could we ask the superintendent to come back in within 30 days without commenting on these specific cases? This seems like it's pretty simple, and we have been discussing it certainly since I've been on the board, that there should be clear policies of what can and cannot be charged for, make sure the language is consistent across all the schools in the district, and then parents who wish to donate funds for their children or other purposes, for voluntary purposes, certainly should be allowed. But can we have a review of
Yeah,
the policy and
Yeah,
and any action?
that item, actually, a couple of days ago, I put on a future agenda. Yes, thank you.
Good afternoon. Happy New Year. Superintendent Martin, Board Trustees. My name is Joanne Fields. I'm the Director of the District E Cabinet, and we have an event this Saturday, January 11th, at San Diego County's only namesake park for Dr. Martin Luther King. This is the 4th annual MLK Family Reunion and Basketball Showcase. We have quite a few schools that are involved in the community that will be performing, so I hope that you will be able to come see Lincoln's freshman basketball team. There's a basketball showcase that is being coordinated by Sean Manning and the Ground Up Youth Foundation. Then we have the MLK Rec Council that will be organizing a festival adjacent to the rec center. We have performers from the Morris Islander Student Association, Fulton Academy step team. We also have performers. There's other groups that are performing for more, so hopefully you'll be able to come see them and join us. It's a free event, and it's open to the public. Thank you. Oh,
What time is it on Saturday?
starts 9 o'clock for the basketball showcase, 12 to 4 for the festival. We have live entertainment between 12 and 4, free food, T-shirts, so it'll be a fun celebration. We hope to see you. Thank you. And I left some flyers by the sign-in sheet and next to your agenda. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dante. I was here last year, December 10th, I believe, regarding my status on CIF, and I just came today to say thank you to the whole school board, all the school board, especially Miss Cindy Martin, superintendent, and now Vice President Ronnie Foster, for helping me. I was clear actually the next day, and our season has been going good. And I'll invite you guys to come to our game Friday at Mira Mesa. So thank you guys for helping me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you, President Beiser, Superintendent Martin, Board Trustees, Lisa Berlenga with Up for Ed. Welcome back to a new year. We very quickly wanted to let you know about the teacher honoree that we chose for the months of November and December. It's Anita Alcaraz, who is a kindergarten teacher at Horton, and it's always a highlight of our month to go and meet these teachers. So we went to her kindergarten classroom, and she's got that very traditional kindergarten classroom that looks like lots of fun, lots of words on the wall, very interactive. Her own kids go to that school, so she feels very proud of her school and her community. She lives in that community, she sends her kids there. She feels that the teachers work really well together, and she's proud to be a member of the Horton staff. Very interesting also, she's another teacher who our parents chose to honor, who was nominated for San Diego Unified Teacher of the Year 2 years ago. This has happened on many occasions for our teacher honorees, so I have her story that I'll give to Cheryl.
Thank you. We have one other person that's turned in a speaker slip, Tina Louise Roberts.
Hi, my name is Tina Louise Roberts. I have a son named Tony Levant Wright. He was going to school at Oak Park Elementary. My son was burned 2 times in the school district. I have tried to obtain a lawyer to help me with this situation. My son has been abused by the caretaker. She's not the caregiver, she's a caretaker, and it's a constant problem. The school, Oak Park Elementary principals have been hiding the child and not allowing me to see the child, and the child has been gone missing. I went on the internet to look up to see, I went from San Diego to San Bernardino trying to find my son. I went on the internet, and on June 26, 2012, it was a minor that got shot in Las Vegas, where this woman resides back and forth. Her name is Debbie Jackson. She goes under Deborah Jackson, Deborah Renee Jackson, Deborah Jackson, Deborah Jackson, Deborah Renee Jackson. And this has been covered up by Oak Park Elementary School about this woman. He has been tortured. He has been burned. She has literally took his arm to punish him and put it up to a burn stove and burnt him. I have notified CPS, I have notified everybody to let them know that this woman is unfit for this child. I have been in here several times. The woman has shot me in the face. She has done a lot of evil things through her gang ties that she has, and it's an ongoing problem. I'm just asking if I can make an appointment with any of you lovely people up here to get a solution to this problem, because I don't know where he's at, what school he's at, because the principals are shut mouth because of the guilt of what she's done there at Oak Park Elementary. My name is Tina Louise Roberts, and I thank you all for allowing me to express my feelings about the abuse and the burns in the school, because the CPS worker said that the burn came from out of the school. So this is 2 times that he has been burned. 2011 and 2012, 2013, he went missing, and no one has seen the child since. Thank you very much.
Well, I normally would refer to the item to staff.
Yes.
But you didn't list any contact information whatsoever
I have
on
it
your
now. I
speaker
have it,
slip.
yes.
So if
I'll
you could
give you-
fill out the speaker slip completely, then I'd be happy to refer it to staff for follow-up.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. That completes the non-agenda public testimony. Thank you all for taking the time to speak to the board and the superintendent today. We appreciate your comments and know that your input helps us to better serve the students and the children. Now, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Please place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to welcome everyone present today and those watching the broadcast and call the January 7th, 2014 regular meeting to order with all board members present. If you wish to address the board today and your name is not on the blue sheet located at both entrances to the auditorium and you have not already submitted a request for public testimony form, please complete the form and submit it to Cheryl Ward, the board action officer. Speakers on agenda items will be called on to speak during the discussion of that agenda item. Once the discussion begins on an item, no additional public speaker requests will be accepted by the board. Non-agenda item testimony was heard at 5 o'clock and will also be heard at the end of the meeting. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda with H1 and H2 moved to the front, the superintendent consent calendar?
So moved.
Is there a second? Please vote. That passes unanimously. I think that's very important for my first board vote. Anything we can do to continue that trend would be wonderful. So at this point in time, we are hearing item H, Superintendent's Consent Agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
At this point in time, would any board member like to pull any item from the consent agenda? Okay, please vote. Again, that passes unanimously.
Mr. President, would you announce what we just approved so that
Sure,
we're here
yeah,
aware?
thank you. What we just approved was the renewal of charter for Gompers Preparatory Academy. Congratulations. Keep up the good work. And we also accepted item H2, which is a resolution to accept the voluntary closure of Ifton University Prep High Charter School. That charter school voluntarily turned in their charter. I'm so used to turning my speaker off after commenting, I have to just remember I have to leave it on now. Okay, so that concludes item H. Now up to item C, report of closed session actions and superintendent's information report. Superintendent Martin, administrative assignments.
Thank you, President Beiser. I have 2 management appointments. Karen Serrels, Deputy General Counsel, and Mary Wager, Human Resources Officer Certificated.
Thank you. Now we move on to item F, operational matters reserved for the board. F2 is the petition to establish Thrive Public Charter School. Superintendent Martin.
So you have before you the information on Thrive Charter School, which is coming to you after the second time the petitioners had submitted the Thrive Charter position to San Diego Unified. The previous petition had been withdrawn following the petitioner's review of staff recommendations to deny. Staff did conduct the capacity interview with the participation of 2 of our administrators from the Charter Advisory Group of the Thrive Charter petition on December 9th. So we're bringing it back tonight for your discussion and for your approval.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, based on the findings from the staff, and I do not do this lightly, I move for the following reasons to deny the petition to establish Thrive Public Charter School. The first finding that this motion is based on is their recent history of involvement has been unsuccessful due to their simultaneous application for both La Mesa, Spring Valley, and San Diego Unified at the same time. To me, there's a concern here of bad faith and lack of commitment to the local community in terms of placing the same charter petition in 2 school districts at the same time. The other findings that I'm basing this motion on are related to the enrollment in terms of unrealistic enrollment projections. The staff in their report has provided some examples. Kavad Charter School had a proposed enrollment of 270, actually only had 51. San Diego Cooperative, the second school, had a projection of 200 and had only 61. And similarly with San Diego Global Vision Academy, they are currently projecting 168. And the other statements by the staff is that while they did collect 150 parent signatures, only 42 of those represent the children in the grades for which they are currently applying, and those signatures go back to between June and October of 2013. So the staff statement is given the significant changes to the most recent charter petition. The signatures gathered cannot be automatically viewed as supporting the current charter petition. So based on the enrollment projections and the fact that there's not a strong level of local support, I am moving that we deny this petition.
Is there a second to the motion on the floor?
Yeah, I'll second the motion for discussion.
Okay. Do we want to hear from public? Let's go ahead and hear from public speakers first. We have Miles Durfee and Nicole Assisi. Yes.
Miles Durfee from the California Charter Schools Association. I know this petition has been in front of you before. I know, we've talked many times about the staff's work, and I know staff has done a very exhaustive process with this petitioner. CCSA has worked very closely with this petitioner. We know that they've worked with a very strong back office provider. We also know that they've worked with a very strong legal counsel in the development of their petition. So we support staff's recommendation. We do not support the motion that's on the table right now. Again, this has been we believe that charter schools should have an opportunity, and Thrive is one of those schools that we have seen all of the recommendations that have been needed to be made have been made in their petition, and we believe it's legally, and not only legally, but also a high-quality opportunity for students in San Diego go forward.
coming here tonight. We truly were thrilled to have the full approval of staff. I think it speaks to the hard work that's been happening between our team and the team here at the office. They've spent a lot of time with our petition, and coming into tonight, they recommended for full approval. They didn't recommend for conditional approval. They recommended for a full approval and said that, you know, given a longer launch ramp, that they believe that we can have a positive and significantly positive impact for students. And we've been incredibly collaborative and have been, you know, are so thankful to the work that both Ms. Walsh and Susan Park, as well as their office staff, Ms. Jones, have done. We've been in close contact with them. We have full faith that they have looked at our petition extremely closely and that it meets and exceeds the requirements for a charter school and for a petition. But not only that, we have families and friends and supporters who are counting on us and who really believe in us. And I wanted you to see some of the folks who are here supporting Thrive. So if you could please stand up. And if you wouldn't mind just remaining standing, in addition to those folks, we have community members who have written us letters of supports, from preschool programs to different community organizations within the location that we want to be. And I'll pass those on to Ms. Ward. These families believe that Thrive is the right option for them. They believe that in the neighborhood that we are choosing to locate in, that families deserve more educational options. And we hope that you give these families that option, because they've come here to show you that this is important to them. This is important to their kids. There are children here who are hoping to be students in our school, and I hope that you give those students a chance to have the school that they are dreaming of. They have the schools that they really want. In regards to facility, we actually identified facilities that would serve us, and we're ready. We have a highly successful team. On our team, there are folks who have helped and have been founding staff members at High Tech High, people who have started charter schools successfully, schools that have been recognized nationwide as being top students and top schools for students. One of our leaders is a founding staff member of Camino Nuevo, which was named by the University of Southern California as one of the top 10 most successful schools to helping students in low-income neighborhoods have more success. And we really hope that you will grant us the opportunity to serve those kids and to show you what we can do, and that you will go with the staff recommendation.
Thank you.
I have a question for the...
Yes.
The staff was recommending, as you alluded to instead of starting this July, starting a year from July, and you support that?
You know, while we were hoping for 2014, we believe they know our petition extremely well, and 2015 works for us. We've been working really closely with them.
Okay. And who would be the executive director, principal of the school? Would that be
The school leaders will be both me and Johanna Simcoe. Johanna, if you could kind of come forward. Johanna was in the High Tech High teacher leadership program. She's got experience working at a high-performing charter school and has the leadership experience, and I think together we'll make a really dynamic team.
And have either of you, and forgive me, haven't looked at the resumes in a bit, have either of you been a principal or head of a school to date?
I've been a principal for 3 schools, both K-8 and high school, and I'll let you talk to you.
I'm currently in an administrative role at High Tech High. I'm not the principal.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think at this point in time, it would be appropriate to listen to staff on the staff recommendation and then have board comment or questions. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Superintendent Martin.
Susan Park is coming up as well, and as you, Mr. Barnett pointed out, that the recommendation is that we move for approval for starting a year from now.
That's right, for a prospective term, for a 5-year term beginning July 2015, ending June 30th, 2020.
So some of the things that I want to talk about, just not specifically to Thrive, but charters in particular in San Diego, because for as board members and public to hear my point of view as a superintendent, that San Diego Unified has a history of working with our charters in San Diego, and we have board policy that was adopted before I became superintendent that looks at, when we're looking at charters to be successful, what we want. The thing we care most about is quality schools in every neighborhood. You've been clear on your vision and what is a quality education, and making sure that in order to ensure quality, that we're looking at increasing rigor. We're looking at the viability of a program and the ability, demonstrably likely to succeed, some of the criteria that's important to us. But at the end of the day, we want every single educational experience in San Diego to be a high-quality learning experience. And whether that's offered in a charter school setting or in a district setting, at the end of the day, we want students and children in San Diego to have a high-quality learning experience. So the charter office has worked with even more engagement in a multidisciplinary team. My expectation of the charter office is that they work with all of our departments, getting more feedback from the educational part of our district, getting information from teaching and learning. When we look at a petition, to look at it more carefully. You just heard the petitioner talk about the significant engagement that they had with staff, looking at the quality of the program that they're offering, and to make sure that if we're going to open up a charter and approve it, that we're being able to give you good recommendations. We've seen highly successful charters and some that are less successful. At the end of the day, we want children to make sure that we want to make sure children are having a good experience. Some of the board policy that you've looked at is you want to look at does a director have a proven record of academic success? So I know Mr. Barnett is asking questions and looking at the resume and saying, who are the directors of schools that not just particularly Thrive, but we apply this to all of the petitions that we look at. Is there financial viability, and is there a democratic process that's being used? Is there a local base of people and supporters? And then from there, that's board work. You look at it through that lens, and I know staff is looking at it through the multiple lenses that we hold to be our values and the things that will make sure that the school is going to be as successful as possible. So the recommendation that you have before you today is that it will be open, we recommend a year from today, or a year from July 1st, 2015.
That's right.
And I don't know if you want to add more to the engagement you have around why you are making this recommendation.
As Superintendent Martin described, the petition review process is something that is multi-department and involves not only an in-person capacity interview that involves the charter office staff in terms of the program manager and the manager. We also invite 2 administrators from our charter advisory group, and this is a group of experienced charter principals, executive directors, CEOs who are operating charter schools every day in our district and are doing it in a capacity that we feel that they would contribute positively to the review process. So we invite charter administrators to our interview process so we have that lens. Superintendent Martin referred to multiple lenses. We want to make sure the district voice as well as the charter voice is part of the process. Also, as Superintendent Martin mentioned, we include multi-departments, including our finance department, as part of this review process. So while we look at the academics, since it is, after all, school, we also look at the financial, the budgets, the projected cash flow, so that the staff has a confidence, feels confident that this is an operator that can hit the ground running with grants that are awarded, students that will be enrolled. And then we also look at the third area that we refer to as governance and operations. So back office providers and understanding of payroll, their role as the employer, and then with respect to governance, we do, as a San Diego Unified Authorizer, look for San Diego local boards where we know that the decision makers of the charter schools are folks that understand our students, our families, and understand the way charter schools operate here to be quality programs. So that's the interview component, which is just one. With respect to the Thrive petitioner, as mentioned, we did 2 capacity interviews because the petition was submitted to our office twice. So we take every submission very seriously, and we take it as a complete petition. We don't consider them drafts. We don't consider them, take as many times as you want to submit a petition because of the resources at the district that are used, and also the charter resources that are used as part of the process. Aside from the interview portion, we do a document review. This petition has been sent out to more than a dozen district departments to ensure that feedback is received and that a sufficient amount of time is taken by our special ed departments, our teaching and learning, our risk management, our legal departments, so that the petition is considered comprehensive and compliant with state law, and also that the staff feels that a sound educational program is presented from soup to nuts, from A to Z of the document, the petitioner's representations, and of course the public hearing. That is the formal process of the board.
So now that you hear the process, maybe you've already known the process, but I really appreciate the overview. So you're clear on the consistency of the criteria and the process that we go through and the level of detail that I expect from staff in terms of what comes before us in being able to ensure that we're offering quality education to all students. And with that and understanding the process, know that I support our staff recommendation, and we also understand that our board has a discretion to take action and may take action that's different. We understand that.
Any board comments?
I have a question. So the petitioner has requested to open fall 2014.
Yes.
And your staff is recommending a year from now.
That's right.
And that is because from what you've reviewed, in addition to what Trustee Evans has stated, that there will be some significant challenges to open 2014.
That's correct. So the petitioner is seeking a petition to be opening July 2014 based on balancing the factors of what was represented at the interview, as well as the document review, as well as the multiple petitions being submitted. Staff could not, in its judgment, recommend a approval to start right away in July 2014. We felt in the interest of ensuring a quality program that a 2015 opening that would ensure a planning period would be more beneficial to the families interested in enrolling.
Could I get a clarification on that same question? Because it was my understanding that if a petition was submitted after November 1st, that it was potentially for a year later anyway. So, so putting aside the issues of a particular petition, this one was submitted after November 1st. So that's not even a, it doesn't sound like it's a special concession. It's just reasonable based on the fact that it came later in the year.
That's true too. Okay. So that was definitely a crucial factor in terms of the chronology of the petition being submitted to the district, that it came after November 1st.
Okay.
Trustee Barrera?
Yeah, Susan, so particularly with the issues related to enrollment, what do you foresee, what does the staff foresee happening? So if there are concerns about meeting enrollment targets if the school were to open in 2014, what does staff base its analysis on that we would have confidence that the petitioner would meet those enrollment targets by fall 2015?
Sure. In terms of referring you to the chart of the enrollment, initially the petitioner proposed 3 grade levels, kindergarten, 5th, and 6th, and it had a larger capacity. And we are careful to look at the petition in front of us. This petition came to us with a reduced number of grade levels, kindergarten and 6th grade. So we understand the context, but this recommendation is based on this petition. And in looking at kindergarten and 6th grade, we note that 84 kindergartners and 84 6th graders. We look at that, and we look at the type of support that is demonstrated. In this particular petition, parent signatures were submitted, and so of course we look at your first year proposing to be 2014. Do we have essentially pre-K parents signing, and do we have parents of 5th graders signing? We looked here, and as Trustee Evans summarized from the findings, a substantial majority on its face without verification did not indicate those grade levels, and that was an additional factor that staff considered to ensure that the enrollment projections were indicative of a successful school opening. Staff ultimately, in weighing that concern, felt that an additional planning period could assist or supplement that component because the grade levels of being so high with 84, so high with 84 in 6th grade. We looked at this petition, then we looked at local recent historical data within our district. We're mindful that at this stage of the petition process, we did not have an exact address that was proposed to parents. While we acknowledge parents are willing to travel, we wanted to look at schools that have opened with 1 or 2 grade levels. How has enrollment come in that first year? And as you see in the chart in the staff's finding, it has come in well below. Actually, none of the ones here, even San Diego Cooperative and San Diego Global, those are schools that had existing schools, successful existing schools, and we still see them come in under 84 for the entire school enrollment.
So staff was initially concerned that in terms of opening in 2014, that even just for those 2 grade levels, my understanding, so based on what you're saying,
Yes.
Susan, is that initially the context was kindergarten, 5th and 6th grade.
Right.
This petition then talked specifically kindergarten and 6th grade.
Yes.
And the concern was that it was going to be difficult to meet those challenges. In going back and forth, I guess, with the petitioner, what did the petitioner produce that gives us some, again, I guess it's the same question, that gives us some level of confidence? In addition to what they've submitted, what are they going to do over the next year to hit those enrollment targets, especially given kind of the experience that we've had with it?
Sure. One of the crucial components is that we would want the petitioner in this planning period to confirm with the district what the facility would be, where it would be located, and that the parents that have maybe signed the petition initially and as part of the recruitment process following are committed to traveling or attending that particular facility. It's both the cart and the horse in this case. The grade levels are one component. The large number in each grade levels is a component. The lack of a secured facility is another component. And those are things that, with time in terms of staff recommendation, could theoretically be remedied in terms of that time period. Facility, enrollment, grade levels, and then the numbers served in each grade level. Staff would, of course, maintain open communication with the petitioner if approved, that would address whether or not these particular grade levels would be sufficient, particularly if the school is approved a year out. It may warrant an additional grade level for kindergarten or first grade, for example. But that's a level of specificity that staff could work with the petitioner on.
Trustee Burnett.
Can you clarify the question that Trustee Evans asked about the timing of the submittal of the petition? After a certain date, it becomes practice that it would open the following school year, or is there some requirement in law, or what is the flexibility?
The November 1st deadline is relevant towards regulation in the California Code in terms of Prop 39 of a facility process. It becomes a marker of if the district is going to look at its master plan towards facilities, it takes a long time. And so November 1st is the cutoff date for that process. We've considered that portion in developing the board policy, and that board policy was developed again with the Charter Advisory Group, those principals whom have been operating in the district successfully for a long time. And we wanted to pick a date that was relevant, not just for the sake of creating a cutoff, but relevant to other aspects. While not all petitioners apply for Prop 39, it does give the district programs as well as other charter schools in our district the opportunity to understand what's coming in the pipeline. And so I understand it could be a date other than November 1st, but that was the rationale as to setting a date sometime in the school year that would give both the district, our charter schools, and the new petitioner sufficient time to say, I am interested in recruiting students in your district, I am interested in a facility private or through the district, and that will give enough time to set up a school.
Okay, but in this case, they're not interested in a Prop 39.
That's right.
So at least the facilities aspect on district property is not an issue, although their ability to find a facility is always if any charter becomes an issue, potentially?
So this petitioner, in this reiteration, the second petition, has indicated that they would not seek Prop 39. The November 1st, you're right, was not a Prop 39 fact for this petitioner. We use that to say, at some point in the year, we would like the district to know who's planning to open a charter school. So we chose that date, and the theory being that if a petition comes after that date and is of high quality, we wouldn't want to not accept the petition, but we would want to be able to tell our departments, to tell our other charter schools who's coming. And so that was the date selected for the cutoff for that year. And so the thinking being that, not that that's a hard and fast one for the law that could never be reviewed in context, but that we set one as a guideline.
Basically, what you're saying, the board has the option, if they wanted to approve this charter for next September, even based on the policies that we have.
Right, and so...
Okay.
Right.
The other That's a good point. The other issue is, obviously, in this charter's case, they applied first and then pulled it and then applied and revised it. And I know we have another public hearing on one coming up, which has submitted 2 additional ones as well. So is this timeline of November 1st going to become a new, essentially a policy or recommended policy of staff, that any petitions that come in after November 1st, that we will recommend that they be approved a year later? Or is that the intention?
Staff's intention with respect to this recommendation is specific to the petition, but I would say from the staff's point of view that we would want to make sure whatever process or intention is very clear. So the board policy was something that was vetted through the Charter Advisory Group and went through a first and second reading with our board, and has been in place to ensure that as we get additional petitions, as you mentioned, that get submitted not only once, multiple times, we want to make sure that we don't get 6 in June to open in September. And so we wanted to set a deadline. And so that's the genesis of that. Going forward, if we have petitioners that are submitted multiple times after November 1st, absolutely staff would consider that, because the board policy requires us to at least consider that date of submission.
I think since I've been on the board, the record of a number of these charters which have anticipated having more capacity, and the staff gave some examples of ones, and I know there's been others, have not, on page 2 of 4 of the staff report, of not meeting the goals. It's certainly been an issue, and it's an issue both financially, clearly, for these schools, not having the ADA to meet their financial challenges, and potentially becoming behind and dipping in the reserves if they have any, and then also obviously educationally. At the same time, I also know that we have a superintendent who, and I've told charters whom I've met with this year, that I think there's going to be, unlike in the past, I shouldn't say unlike in the past, there will be a more heightened focus on the academic side than there maybe has been in the past. There has been certainly focus on the academic aspects of it, but I think it's going to be more heightened now under our new superintendent, which I think is consistent with what the board would like, that all public school children within this district have the best chance of success in whether it's charter school or a traditional public school. On this specific case, we have approved charters for schools with much less sophisticated, I guess for lack of a better term, applicants than this group. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't change or tighten the criteria. I'm just saying that we need to understand that if we're changing this, that we need to understand that I think we need to be consistent going forward. And because we've had what I'd call a number, I kind of put them into the mom and pop charters, educators who are very enthusiastic. They get parents who are enthusiastic. They come in and then they deal with this terribly convoluted and complex process of setting up a charter, and then of course the financing side and operating a school, and then they hit the space issues and then the first year occupancy issues. And we've approved those, and this particular petition definitely seems like it has more going for it than a number of charters that we've approved. So I think the board, number one, needs to decide clearly, does this charter meet the criteria for approval? Secondly, approval in September or a following year staff recommends. And third, what type of precedent we're setting in doing this. I guess my view would be is I would support the staff recommendation of having this open in a year, although understanding people who signed up now are going to put their kids in school of some sort, and then it's not unlikely that another of them might say, well, we don't want to move our kid another year. So they'll have to in some ways start from scratch and build their enrollment, although certainly more time to so I guess what I'm saying is that I would support staff recommendation, understanding that we're creating a precedent. Even if that's supported, of course, the motion on the floor is deny it, and that's another issue. But even that, then we need to understand that as we look at future charters, that's creating a precedent that we should hold consistently, especially with a charter which, as I say, has a fairly sophisticated group from both financial and experience in running other schools. And is that the intent of the superintendent to help develop a different policy approach to these charters? And it's not something I have to answer now, but it's something we should discuss. Lastly, this board did approve, or 2 boards ago, did approve, whenever it was, after Mr. Beiser and I got on the board, a process to try to ratchet down on the quality of the charters by saying that the only flexibility we have a school board have is in the number of years. That if they meet legal requirements, that in theory we should, we don't have as much flexibility. So that what we said is that we were going to give charters 3 years unless they met 3 basic criteria. One was to make sure they had their leaders had some proven track record of running a school successfully. Number 2, that they have a fairly robust process for democratic involvement of their teachers and their staff and their parents. And number 3, that they have financial viability or reserves beyond just the bare basic. Now, while we've addressed some of these issues in this report, I'd like us to go back to pointing out each of those items specifically in future charter approvals, because that's the board policy, and said that, look, we will give you 5 years if you meet these criteria. If you don't, then we're only going to give you 3 years, even though you might meet the basic needs for a charter. Now, in this case, it seems like their democratic process is actually more robust, once again, than, in fact, the recent charters that we've just approved, where they did not specifically, where they were more amorphous and more general in some cases, because I think our policy was maybe more general. And here they're specifically saying the formation and the size of that. We've already had some discussion on the academic qualifications of the leaders. The financial side of it is not specifically mentioned, although I know the petitioner has mentioned that they have other outside resources that I think would support them that other charters don't have. So anyhow, those are my thoughts, and so I won't support the motion on the floor, and if it doesn't pass, I'll support the staff recommendation with the understanding that we need to step back and look at, if we're creating a new policy approach, then we need to be consistent with that.
Okay. Anybody else? Vice President Foster.
Thank you, President Beiser. I just want to remind everyone that when we look at ADA, that's serious, and that's significant, especially in the face of LCFF, especially when we're looking at the historical data that you just mentioned. It doesn't look as promising as it may seem, particularly in District E, when we've had several charters close, more recently with the charter at the Bayview site, and just tonight, Ifton, ADA. And it's not to be taken lightly. These are real significant issues. And so I'm looking at this data, and I'm very, very concerned. And so when we're talking about consistency, we need to be consistent with regard to our expectations with ADA. And as you mentioned, Scott, there are parents that a year from now, their students will already be enrolled. So that even looks less promising. 84, the 84 enrollment is barely met, typically, looking at the historical data. And that's their target, just with 2 grades. So, I mean, that's significant. You would already delay it just based on when the petitioner has submitted. So, on this date, what are they prepared based on what the data that we're looking at? And what I am seeing is no. And I'm hearing an argument to do otherwise. I'm supporting John Evans' motion.
Okay,
Thank you,
Mr. Evans.
Supervisor. I want to address the issues that Mr. Barnett brought up, because I think they're very important. And when I came on the board, or when Richard and I came on the board, we sometimes ask the staff, what are we, can you hear me? Yeah, I'm sorry if you can't hear. We asked staff, what is this approval process? And it's basically, well, if they've met this and this criteria, then you must automatically approve. And at that point, we were saying, well, then what are we doing here? You're telling us they've met this and we have to approve it, so why is it even being brought to us for approval? And then the same thing would happen with renewals. Well, if they haven't fallen below X level, then therefore you must renew. And I think there's been an evolution. I mean, I think this, without doubt, San Diego is one of the most charter-friendly districts in the entire United States. And I think in the time that I've been on the board, in the last 5 years, probably as many charters has been approved as any years before. I know we've been very, very hesitant to close charters, but we've really said we want to, because we value charters, we really want to maintain high quality. And as difficult as it is sometimes to close a charter school, when we see people who are trying hard and have very good intentions and give us one more chance, we have to really, we really have to be hard-nosed about it sometimes in terms of the interests of the kids. So I think that if we look back over the last year, that there really has been a gradual change. One of the things certainly the charter committee that's working with the staff on this, and also just before the staff was doing, and first of all I want to say I really appreciate the thorough work that the staff is doing. I mean, they're doing a really great job. One of the things that we saw before was the staff was essentially helping people fill out their charter applications. They would turn it in, well, this is missing, that's missing, so they would have it all complete by the time that they brought it to us. And we know that even if you have a complete application, that in itself doesn't necessarily guarantee success. But sometimes they weren't even meeting that, and yet at the end, with the staff's help, they finally had an adequate application, and then they were approved. So what we have to do as a board, I think we have said we want a higher level of scrutiny. My concern about we didn't want to have extra help to fill out the applications. When the issue was brought up, well, we have some concerns, but we'll give them another year is also a little bit of aiding or enabling, if you want to call it. I mean, when it comes to signatures and proof, I think one of the examples I have is when we run for office and we have to turn in a certain number of signatures to verify support by a certain date. There aren't any do-overs in that. I mean, you have to have it by that date. And so I think we have to maintain pretty high standards in terms of this. But ultimately, what we have to do as the board is, in terms of all the details of the educational program and so forth, I mean, we have to rely on the professional educators' presentation in terms of what they've come up with, in terms of how they evaluate it. But we do have to look at the findings. And I think the problem here is that from a board point of view, from my point of view, the findings are pretty significant, because the fact that the charter petition was submitted, it was going to be denied and was immediately withdrawn, and it was related to the same time period in which it was submitted in both places, is a real concern. The other concerns are about the support, the enrollment and so forth, in terms of really being able to achieve that. So I don't think this is a change. I think this is a gradual evolution. I think we're really looking for high standards for our schools, and one of the things we've done lately is we're going to have presentations by our charter schools in terms of they're supposed to be the incubators of innovation. They're going to come back and make presentations to us. And so, we've certainly seen many great charter schools in this district, and I'm sure we'll see many more. But I think we have to stick to the findings that they've had, and we as a board are required to take the evidence and make a judgment based on that. So for that reason, that's why I'm putting this motion forward. I realize that, I don't know the technical legal procedures, but basically my understanding is that if we deny, we have to direct staff to come up with a set of findings based on what they present us here to include in the packet of denial, if that's what the board decides.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Barrera, Trustee Barrera.
Thank you, President Bosser. Yeah, I'm going to support the motion as well. I think we are in an evolving environment in San Diego. I mean, in California, we're 20-plus years into the charter movement. In San Diego, we've certainly, during that time period, I think you can almost think of it as a kind of a startup environment and culture, and we've wanted to, certainly in the time that I've been on the board, we've wanted to encourage innovative ideas coming forward. But we are, as I think a couple of my colleagues have talked about, we are in a situation now where we've got a strong charter environment in San Diego. We've got a strong history that we need to look at where we've had success and where we have not had success. And I think as we are evolving, as the number of charter schools have not only grown, but also as the experience of a lot of our charter operators, has been in place now for a long time, I think the standards do need to get higher, and I think we need to have more of a clear sense when a new petition comes before us that we've got a high degree of confidence that petition is going to be successful. And in this petition, there's too much ambiguity. There's been ambiguity from the first petition that was brought on board. I mean, the initial conversation was that the school was going to be located in City Heights. I, frankly questioned that, and petitioner listened, and I appreciated that. But then the location was potentially going to move, but it was at the same time that there was a petition being submitted in another district. And now we come with this petition, and we've got a change in the grade configuration. We don't know for certain where the school is going to be. We don't have a facility lined up. And we've got, questions about whether the enrollment targets can be met and we don't have a clear strategy in place that would give me confidence that we're going to meet those enrollment targets, whether it's in the fall of 2014 or in the fall of 2015. So I think in an environment where the standards are increasing, and where we need to now look at new petitions and hold them up against the experience that we've had with charter schools for a number of years in San Diego, I need to see more clarity, and I need to have more confidence when a petition comes forward that it's going to have some degree of success. And yeah, I would admit, and maybe what Trustee Barnett is suggesting, that my standards are evolving as well. And whereas I think certainly a few years ago, my instinct was to try to support and encourage and hope that charter schools could overcome some of the questions that we would have had. I mean, we had, controversy on this board about approving IFTN in the first place. We had controversy on this board about renewing Nubia. Those were, difficult discussions, and I erred in both those cases on the side of wanting those school communities to succeed, but they didn't. And so now, I think I've got to have some more clarity and some more confidence in approving a petition than this current petition gives me.
Excuse me, President Beiser. I don't want to interrupt General Counsel, who will probably weigh in on this. To the extent that our board is moving to take staff findings in support of a denial, there are 5 reasons a petition can be denied under Education Code 47605, and I wanted to make sure our board action officer has clarity as to which of the 5 or how many of the 5 staff's recommendations would be in support of. The first one being, these are all 5, but the charter school presents an unsound educational program for the pupils to be enrolled in the charter school. The second one being the petitioners are demonstrably unlikely to successfully implement the program set forth in the petition. The third one addresses the signature requirement, whether it's teachers or parents. And the fourth one is the affirmation of conditions as set forth in subdivision D. And then the fifth one...
Excuse me, affirmation of conditions of what?
I'm sorry, the affirmation of conditions in subdivision D of Education Code section 47605.
I don't recall that section.
So those represent a paragraph of language that requires the charter school to explicitly state and sign by the lead petitioner that it will not discriminate, it will not be a private school, it will be non-sectarian, it will adhere to Education Code 220 in terms of students, any bias or discrimination. It's a series of conditions, affirmations and conditions. And then the fifth one, that there is a reasonably comprehensive description of all the elements required, which are largely referred to as the 16 required elements. So within these 5, the board has the discretion to take any of staff's findings and determine that they support one or more of the 5. I can tell you from staff's review that the signature requirement has been met, if not by the parent portion, but by the teacher portion. Our office does verify the signatures. The affirmation of conditions is present. Based on the findings that were stressed by our board at this meeting, it would appear that it would support the petitioners are demonstrably unlikely to successfully implement the program set forth in the petition with respect to the enrollment level of support along with the facilities in terms of clarity. So I wanted to make sure I interjected on that piece.
Okay, so if I may,
Yeah,
President
go
Beiser,
ahead.
just to understand what you've said so that we're doing this properly. I based my my motion on 3 different findings that came from you, and I'm assuming that each of these findings would fall under one of those categories. So the first one, that their recent history has been unsuccessful, would come
That would
under,
fall under the demonstrably unlikely to successfully
right.
implement the
And
program.
then the second one that I brought up was the unrealistic enrollment projection, which I'm not sure if that falls under the same one.
Yes, it would fall under
Falls
the
under
same one.
Because, and with the signatures, the requirement is either staff, if I understand, either staff or parents. It doesn't have
Either
to be
teachers
both.
or parents. So the staff made a verification of the teacher signatures. The parent signatures, because they were submitted as part of the charter petition, were reviewed by staff and considered, and that's why you have the finding about the 42 parents of the 150 or so not being of the appropriate grade level for the first year of operation. But both of the findings that you've highlighted from the staff report would tie into the 47605's petitioners are demonstrably unlikely to successfully implement the program set forth in the petition, as demonstrated if adopted by the board of the finding with respect to the petitioner's recent history of success in charter schools and the enrollment projections as stated in the petition.
And just a minute, and then so the finding 3, I don't know if that just folds into that, have not demonstrated a strong level of support for their petition.
That would also fall into as a third finding.
Okay.
Okay. At this point in time, I'd like to have comment from General Counsel Andra Donovan, please.
There we go. Thank you, Ms. Park, for your analysis, and I would concur that the two bases for a finding or a determination of denial would be the petition does not contain reasonably comprehensive descriptions of the criteria set forth in the Education Code, and that it's demonstrably, the petitioner is demonstrably unlikely to successfully implement the program set forth in the petition, specifically with respect to the enrollment and the other issues that you raised earlier.
Okay, thank you. Any other board comments? Okay. I think that this is what we have before us this evening is a staff recommendation after several months of working collaboratively with the charter petition folks and really going through these 5 characteristics and factors articulated in Ed Code to determine whether or not the school or the charter petition is viable, legal, and meets the standards of the school district. I think that the staff and the superintendent have put together a lot of work to make sure that the petition and the petitioner meets those high standards of the school district. Initially, I had a lot of doubts and reservations also. I think that Trustee Evans has raised some very good points of concern about the enrollment numbers and the history of other charter schools being able to meet their projected enrollment numbers. However, I don't get the sense that this is like other charter schools. And so I think that I'm going to go ahead and support Superintendent Cindy Martin and the work of the staff to approve the staff recommendation if this motion fails. At this point in time, if there are no further comments, please vote. We're voting on the motion to deny the charter petition. That motion passes 3-2 to deny the charter petition. Now on to item F4. Revised January 6, 2014, public hearing for the petition to establish Magnolia Science Academy Next Generation Charter School. Superintendent Martin. Okay, once again, item F4, public hearing, information item only regarding Magnolia Science Academy. Superintendent Cindy Martin.
This is a public hearing for the Magnolia Charter. It's the 3rd time the petitioners have submitted the Magnolia Science Academy Next Generation Charter petition to the district. The previous petitions were withdrawn by the petitioners prior to the board action date. So Magnolia Governing Board operates one other charter school that's authorized by the district, the Magnolia Science Academy San Diego, as well as multiple other charter schools across the state, including charter schools located in Los Angeles and Santa Clara counties. This is a public hearing that's held pursuant to the Ed Code to consider the level of support of the petition to establish, and the history is written in the board item.
All right, we have a number of speakers on the item, so for the sake of time, please limit your comments to 1 minute. Mehmet Argin, Mustafa Kaynak, Gökhan Sersi, Karen Evans, Trevor Argood, Paul Hernandez, Nick Hernandez, Mustafa Keslain, and Miles Durfee. Please come to the podium in any order.
Good evening, Superintendent Dr. Cindy Martin, Board President Mr. Beiser, members of the board and the community members. My name is Mehmet Argın. I am the Chief Executive Officer of Magnolia Public Schools, which operates 11 charter schools and serving approximately 4,000 students in California, including Magnolia Science Academy San Diego. First, I would like to thank San Diego Unified School Board of Education for their support in MSA San Diego since its inception 2005. Second, I would like to thank the district staff, Mr. Moises Aguera and Susan Park, for their support as well. I would like to introduce some of our team members with me tonight that they are here to address any questions and concerns if you have. Mr. Gökhan Sersi, Mr. Noah Stevens, Ms. Lisa Kaur, Karen Evans, Mekan Mohamedov, and David Yilmaz. Magnolia was incorporated in '97 in an effort to fill the gap in STEM education and opened the first school in 2002, emphasizing on math, science, technology, and engineering education. In San Diego, so thank you for your consideration of our petition, and we look forward to working with district staff for any questions that they have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Board President, Mr. Beiser, members of the board, and Superintendent. My name is Mustafa Kaynak, and I'm one of the board members of Magnolia Public Schools, and I'm an electronics engineering profession working for a semiconductor company, Micron Technology, and I have a PhD degree in electronics from Arizona State University. I would like to briefly discuss why I joined Magnolia Public Schools as a board member. Being kids of retired teachers, I'm a firm believer of science and technology focused education. And we have a lot of very successful local engineering and science companies who require well-qualified engineers and scientists. And in this regard to high-quality STEM education is really the key to prepare our kids for future. And this is exactly what Magnolia is trying to achieve. A well-educated workforce will also help our local economy in terms of attracting other companies to come and open offices in San Diego. And thank you very much for your support.
Thank you.
This is not my speech. It's just in case, you know. Superintendent Martin, President Beiser, and board members. My name is Gökhan Sersi. I am the site coordinator of MSA Next Generation. First of all, I would like to thank all the stakeholders of Magnolia Science Academy. We have prospective parents, we have alumni of our current school, and we have executives, we have teachers, we have parents, so everyone is here to show their support for our school. So I'm just going to say one thing actually. So currently, for our current school, the open enrollment will be closed at the end of this month. And I am happy to say that we already met our target, like we have enough applications. So for some parents, unfortunately, they will enter, we will have a lottery for the parents. So because of this high demand, we really want to open this school next year, and we would like to meet the demand of our community, and we would like to provide this Magnolia Public Schools success to our other community members. Thank you very much.
Just ask a quick question. So you've already, the staff gave a revised enrollment projection of 150 for 2014. Is that, you said you've already met that?
No, it is for our current
Oh, your current Magnolia.
For current Magnolia.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Yes, we know that's been very successful.
Yeah,
Thank you very much. Just want to clarify.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Karen Evans, and I serve as Dean of Academics at Magnolia Science Academy, San Diego. I was also one of the founding staff members for our school when we opened in 2005, so I've seen our growth over the years, and I just have to echo that we have a tremendously successful academic program. Our students are involved in all sorts of fabulous things. We have an archery program, engineering program. We have our students going on to great success. In a few weeks, we're having our first alumni gathering, and I don't know how many of you visited your middle school, but we have 120 students signed up to attend as alumni to come back and find out what's happening at Magnolia now. And the biggest heartbreak for us is that in being successful, we're not able to serve the needs of our community. As we already said, we already have a wait list. We'll know we'll need one after our lottery, and with another campus in San Diego, we'll be able to serve more families and bring STEM. We hope you can come visit our school soon and see our success, and we really appreciate your support in getting another campus open in San Diego. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Trevor Angood, and I'm the 7th grade world history teacher. This year marks my 6th year at Magnolia Science Academy, and I've worn many hats, including archery coach, Washington, D.C. trip coordinator, department head, grade level team leader, WASP focus group leader, amongst many others. I believe that Magnolia is not only supports and prepares students in the core curriculum, but allows and supports for further enrichments for students, including making sure our alumni continue to be successful as they continue to high school, college, and into their adult lives. To further enrich, we have out-of-classroom offerings that have included putting students in medieval armor in 7th grade, on the archery range competing against other schools, using Legos and computer programming to build robots to solve real-world problems, and taking part in civic projects to help the needy and to help make our part of the planet a little bit more green. And even meant a memorable moment for me being duct taped to a cement wall. For those and many other reasons, I'm excited to fully support the petition in establishing Magnolia's Next Generation Campus. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nick Hernandez, and I went to MSA last year. Right now I'm in freshman in high school. I just like to say that MSA is a great school. Like, I really like the math programs that they have. Like, they offer geometry as for advanced math, which I was in. Also like engineering, stuff like that. Like, I think those are great things for like other people that like that they enjoy things with like technology based, which other schools don't have. Like, I think it'd be great if our school could open up a new campus here in San Diego, because they could offer more to more families, offer more than other that other schools don't have. Like, I know a lot of schools don't have music programs, which we do, and I know that they don't always have, like, even computers at their schools. They don't have a full-on technology class like which MSA does. So I think it'd be a great idea just to allow them to open up a new school. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Paul Hernandez. I first attended Magnolia 4 years ago. I am now a sophomore at Helix Charter High School. This school has given me so many opportunities. It has shown me new organizational skills. It has prepared me for high school. This school, it has so many opportunities for so many people. I would like a new campus for this school, because more families could have the same opportunities that I had. We had football, we had basketball, we had just more opportunities than other schools may have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, board members, board president, and superintendent. This is Dr. Mustafa Keskin. I live at Scripps Ranch community of San Diego. I have two kids. One is enrolled to Scripps Elementary School, and the other one is enrolled to Marshall Middle School. I've been in San Diego for about 15 years. I've been SDUSD parents for about 8 years. I have seen success of the Magnolia Science Academy over the years. I really love to have another campus, especially in the northern county of the San Diego School District. Even though there are other opportunities around, I really like their curriculum and their high-tech and science focus of the school. With its current success, I think second campus in the San Diego will be very good for the high-tech technology industry and also for the community in general. Both of my wife and I are from high-tech background, and we work in different companies in wireless communication industry. So we really love these kind of schools, and we would like to get the support from the board members tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Miles Durfee.
Miles Durfee from California Charter Schools Association. I personally have witnessed the lottery out at Magnolia at the current site, and so I know that their waiting list is representative of the over 1,000 unduplicated students that we estimate are waiting for spots in charter schools and hoping to get into charter schools that can't right now. This is a high-performing organization. They have a large track record, not only here, but in other places, and we support their petition and hope that you will approve them. Thank you.
Okay, I think that's all for public comment. This is a public hearing information item only, so it's not an action item this evening. Thank you very much. Now let's move on to item. Oh yeah, I apologize. Go ahead.
So, and this might be for staff or the petitioner. Could you just review? So this is your third submission of a petition, and the previous two were withdrawn. So, why did you withdraw the previous two, and what has changed? With this petition.
Okay, so as site coordinator, of course, So, as I mentioned in the previous meeting, that because of the LCFF changes, we wanted to correct some of the financial items. We just wanted to make those changes. That's why actually we wanted to update and present a better petition to our board. It's pretty much it, actually.
Okay, great. And then just the second question, and I apologize in advance for asking the question, but there's been some media, stories, and I'm not going to ask you to, address those specifically, but there was a question about sort of the compensation structure of the staff, and it was, I guess, alleged that there's a compensation structure where staff is expected to make contributions, to certain organizations. So I
think it is either Mr. McCann or there is Mr. Stevens, my president, principal president.
President Beiser, board members, Superintendent Martin. For your question, Trustee Barrera, Magnolia Science Academy San Diego, being part of the Magnolia Public Schools, has set up a payment system, salary scale, that is open to staff of the Magnolia, and it's based on some basis for each city, and depending on their level of education, their experience, whether they have gathered that experience in Magnolia or outside of Magnolia, and depending on their degree, master's degree, or if they have credits to meet certain criteria to become a teacher, or if they are credentialed, or they have preliminary credential or clear credential, all of this is put into the rubric, and as a result of that rubric, each teacher has a compensation level depending on what duty they will be serving at the school. So we have this for teachers, and we have this for the administrative staff, and so for principals. And this isn't just for Magnolia Science Academy San Diego, but throughout Magnolia that serves students in California, and we apply this. Other than this, we do not have any sort of or any other type of compensation or a way of paying our teachers, and we would be more than happy to share that information with you all.
And no expectation, either explicit or implicit, that members of staff are expected to make contributions to certain organizations.
Under no circumstances we aware of this, and I've never heard this happening.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you for the questions. And the other board members have a comment?
Just a comment to, the board may recall that last year they had a previously approved Magnolia petition with a year running on it, and they had a Prop 39 offer on Mission Bay, and the Magnolia School voluntarily withdrew that because the bungalows they were going to use were going to be removed, which they currently are now anyway, and they have been a very helpful organization as far as working with the school district in trying to meet the needs of their students as well as understand the concerns we have, both the space and other things. And they've also been a very successful current Magnolia School. Obviously, we need to look at the merits of this individual petition when it comes forward, but they've been a good partner for the district in the past, and so that's something I certainly appreciate.
So, if I could question Mr. Barnett or the staff of the Magnolia. we talked about different submissions, so they had actually been approved for this new charter and put in the Prop 39 request, and then that didn't work out, and so for that reason it never started. And
Right.
now they're bringing back a new petition. And
This
then-
is a new petition,
And then the new
correct.
petition, and then you brought back one petition, but then there was the issue of LCFF and some of the changes in the funding, so that's why you withdrew that one, and you're submitting this one.
That's
Okay.
correct.
Okay, just
Wow,
so
you
we
followed all those.
Right, right. Now I recall that in the history, because we did approve it before.
Yeah.
And is there anything, I guess I would just ask, when we did approve it before, is there anything substantially different in this? What are the differences of this petition versus the one that was previously approved?
I may add to this, and Mr. Yilmaz can add as well. I'm the Chief Financial Officer at Magnolia Public Schools again. So in terms of LCFF funding, and we've had better picture going into submitting this petition, better idea of how the funding levels will be. So there were some changes made into that. And as far as I know, there were some academic changes made. Maybe Mr. Yilmaz can add on to that.
You know, as a requirement of the new LCFF law, the state has identified 8 priority areas that schools need to set goals for. So we have added those specific annual measurable goals for our charter. That's one thing, and then there were other questions by the staff that needed some more clarification, like whether we have one board governing all of the schools, or are we going to have a local board here? How does the school site council work? And we have a local board member. So we clarified those in the petition, as well as adding those LCFF goals to the petition.
And it doesn't have to be, but are the enrollment projections for this petition the same as the one that was
Yes,
previously
they have stayed the
approved?
same.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
And actually, with working with the office staff at Charter Division in San Diego, and we really appreciate working with them. And also, given the boards and San Diego Unifieds, and given since we have schools throughout California meeting the demand and meeting the goals that we have put forward, we made our goals even more conservative and lowered it a bit to 150, so that we can have just 2 sets of teachers rather than diversifying our teaching level and having finances accordingly. And from our experiences in opening previous charters, we've learned that having just 2 sets of teachers in the beginning of the first year of the charter makes it easier and financially more viable charter in the coming years. So we've adjusted that slightly, that meaning not increasing it, but lowering it to more conservative numbers.
Thank you. Again, this is an information item only, so now let's move on to item F5, public hearing for the petition to establish HTE Charter School. Superintendent Martin.
Thank you once again, Board. This is a public hearing for the petition to establish High-Tech Elementary Charter School. So if approved, this is the first look at it tonight, and we'll be bringing it back later, but if approved, this would be the 6th charter school operated by High-Tech High, governing board within San Diego Unified. High-Tech High also operates charter schools in San Marcos and Chula Vista, which are authorized by the State Board of Education. As you probably know, High-Tech High's had schools since 2000, been established in San Diego. It's the first reading tonight.
All right, let's hear from public testimony. Daniel Roma, Larry Rosenstock, and Catherine Hines.
Hi, I'm Larry Rosenstock from High-Tech High. Just to be clear, High-Tech High is a non-profit, independent public school organization, and we have, as has been noted, 5 schools here at the former Naval Training Center. There happens to be one more building that we could acquire. We've been trying for years to acquire it, and we finally have it under agreement. It's building 271. It's about 150 yards from our campus. It's opposite the 50-acre park. It's a neoclassical building, 58,000 square feet, 2.5 acres, and we're going to put hopefully, an elementary school within it. We have Explorer Elementary right now, a couple hundred yards away. Explorer has about 1,370 applicants every year. It has virtually no openings in 1 through 5. There's typically about 137 apps per each grade. There are 25 to 35 siblings at each grade who do not get in. At the elementary level, we accept 63 children and run about 550 applicants annually for those positions, which is obviously not why we do this work, because it's disappointing to all concerned. I want to also recognize other people from High Tech High who are here today, just if you just stand up for a second. Thanks. I think you have 2 images in your folder, or I've been told that you do. One is an aerial photograph of the building, so you can actually see the property that we're discussing. And the other one is from the National Student Clearinghouse. The National Student Clearinghouse data is really the only aggregator that we have of 4-year college completion rates of high schools. A lot of us have been wanting this for more decades than I'd like to say. I've been trying to, and we finally have them. So when you look at those numbers for 2007, those are our numbers, okay, for broken down by subgroups.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Romo?
Hi, my name is Daniel Romo. I am a teacher in the high-tech system. I heard that we're opening up a brand new school, and I was super excited, so I want to come and share my support. I've been teaching for about 12 years. I've taught in the traditional sector, an educational background, and now I'm in high-tech, and I just am in love with the project-based approach that we take and the deeper learning that we really dive into. So I am really proud to support High Tech and its new school, and I know that there are a number of siblings and a number of young candidates that are definitely willing to go to the High Tech, and so I think it's definitely needed. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mrs. Hines. I'm a parent. I have 4 children. 2 of them did not get into the high-tech system until 6th grade. The other 2, we have continued to enroll them year after year in the lottery system. And actually, in January, we hold a lottery party where we have a bunch of families over to our house and have everyone sign up. And then later on, when after spring break, we get the disappointing letters, we all have a condolence party because we all are very disappointed that our kids didn't get in. Unfortunately, we only have a few more years left before our kids are no longer able to get into elementary school. And this is something we'd really love to see implemented. We are very excited about it. If they opened it up tomorrow, we would be there first thing in the morning. The high-tech schools have changed our lives. Our 2 older kids, both are special needs, have been integrated into the classrooms, have been taken off of medications, and have been given clearings from their doctors because the way that they educate them removes all the barriers that they were encountering in their other public school systems and makes them more concerned about their community. They have academically grown, and at some point they will no longer live in my house, which I am personally very grateful for. I really hope that you pass this, and when you do, I will throw a party for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Miles Durfee.
I'm speaking in capacity of being a CCSA rep, but also as a parent of a child who is on the waiting list at High Tech High Middle. So I'm excited that we may have another opportunity with my son who's in elementary school to be at a new High Tech High school. So I support the petition and wanted to echo the great value that High Tech High has brought as a national standard in charter schools.
Thank you. Board member comments?
Just one clarification, Mr. Rosenstock, and this petition you are requesting for July 2015. I assume that's in order to have the facility being built and so forth.
Thank you, Ms. Reitner, for that. Yeah, we have a very long runway. We started looking for the building 2 years ago. Construction would begin in April, a 14-month window to do the renovation, and September 15, that's correct. Yeah.
So a question here. So you would have 2 elementary schools very close to each other?
A couple of hundred yards away from each other, that's
right.
correct. Yes.
And would there be any difference between these 2
not
elementary
really.
schools?
Same program.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other board member comments? Okay, again, this is a public hearing information item only, no action. So thank you very much. Let's move on to item F6, review of Charter School Facilities Committee Planning Grant and Project Grant Rubric. We have two different parts to this agenda item. The first is informational from staff and the superintendent, and then the second is a proposal for discussion from trustees Barnett and Barrera. Let's start with Superintendent Cindy Martin.
Thank you, President Beiser. This comes from at the December 3rd board meeting. I believe it was Trustee Barnett, when we were giving an update on Prop S and Prop Z projects. You requested that we bring forward the Charter School Facility Review Committee's grant application documents, and there was discussion around wanting to have more information about that. And so we're bringing it back tonight so that you're aware of the Prop Z funding allocation guidelines that are used, the preliminary and advanced planning grant review rubric and application, and the project grant review rubric and application. And these are documents that probably when we first put them into place you knew about them, but at the last board meeting or at the December 3rd board meeting when we were looking at Prop S and Prop Z projects, it came up again. And so we're bringing it back today. We provided for you all of those documents for you to review so that you would understand the process. And so I want to give a little bit more background that on September 4th, 2012, the board passed the resolution to establish its Charter School Facility Committee, and that committee is comprised of 7 members, including 5 charter school board members or employees, 2 individuals with expertise, knowledge, or background related to charter school operations and facilities. And those committee members were nominated by the superintendent, and the committee then began to meet. And that committee started meeting on April 2nd, 2013, and they've had a total of 14 publicly noticed meetings. And I think that there was just you wanting more information about how this committee works and what the scope of their work is and what documents they use when they meet. So we've attached for you the guidelines, the planning grant application, the project grant application, and then the rubric that the committee has used, and just so that you're aware of what all those are and what that committee is doing. And I think board wants to have discussion about that now tonight.
Correct.
I have Mr. Dolgoroff here too if we have questions too. This is not a staff committee. This is a committee that was established, but we have provided you all the information that you requested at the December 3rd meeting so you could have a dialogue tonight.
And just for information purposes, board members were provided some talking points that Mr. Barnett turned in this afternoon, and it's in your brown file folders. Do we have that available on the screen, or is that on the website for people that want to see it?
Board docs, yeah.
Board docs?
Yeah.
Okay, because we just got this afternoon.
Right.
So we didn't have the opportunity to read over it.
And we're not asking for the board to take action on these tonight.
Right,
So
right.
just
A
to
first
clarify.
reading.
If I can just give a little additional background. The committee that was set up for the charter review Prop Z committee that the superintendent just referred to, the way they've been operating a little different than the Independent Citizens Oversight Committee in that there hasn't been really any, staff has only played the role of, if you will, a mailman. They've taken the information that the committee has reviewed and the proposals they come up with and then pass it on to the board. The staff, because the board never asked them to, has not vetted, reviewed, analyzed either the proposed process of determining which charter schools would get what grants, nor have they reviewed the specific proposals to see if, for a variety of factors, whether it's financial, whether viability, timing, et cetera. So one thing we are suggesting tonight is that we do have the staff get involved in this process, because otherwise you have a group of citizens who are recommending without any professional staff input, not to say the members of the committee are not professionals, but any of our district staff input recommending specifically who and how to spend tens of millions of dollars, and then it goes right to the board saying, well, approve it or not approve it, without any vetting by staff. And so we think that the staff should play a role of that, at the very least, to review and comment on the items and when they come forward. So that's one thing we'd like to have come out of tonight, that staff play a more active role in that process. The committee itself developed, as the board sees, a number of a rubric for what they believe is the best way to recommend which projects should be approved, priority, and so forth. And I understand that some of those discussions were rather heated, contentious, a lot of varying opinions, because the charter community is broad here. We have very professional, sophisticated run organizations, and we just saw the high-tech high community, which would be on one end of the scale all the way down to what I call the mom and pop of maybe one person who said, hey, wouldn't it be great to start a charter school, and then after lots of work and all that, they're running a school. So the level of knowledge and expertise beyond even the academic, looking at these physical facility issues, is varied. So our responsibility ultimately as the Board of Education is to make sure this $350 million is spent not only fairly and equitably on appropriate charter projects, but that we meet the best interest of the taxpayer, because ultimately this committee is advisory and this board is responsible for spending taxpayers' dollars wisely while being consistent with the action of the taxpayers to spend money on these charter facilities. So what was submitted today, beyond the recommendation that we get staff immediately involved in the process, is a series of policy recommendations that the board would discuss and adopt, and we're recommending adopt at the following meeting a month from now, so the charter committee could review them, any members of the public, the board has more time to review them, and essentially these would overlay the work that the charter committee has done. So we're not talking about undoing all the rubric and all the process they've done, but overlay them. Now, there are a couple of items in here which would conflict. And in those cases, obviously the board policy, if the board approves them, would take precedent. So the idea is to make sure that the public is clear and the charter community is clear what our goals and objectives are as a board. So maybe I could just briefly go through these, and that way if there are any comments from the public or charter schools tonight, there would be an understanding of what we're coming from. Right. Once again, these are recommended to be just a first reading tonight, no action. So the first priority, and this has been something the board discussed, and this would be on page 1 after background, is that the board has said from the very beginning that obviously the issue of space, where charter schools go, has been a significant challenge, and when we've had Prop 39 cohabitation issues, it's been particularly challenging, and I've referred to it as a shotgun wedding, and sometimes it's been that way, and sometimes they've lived in bliss. So the idea is that the primary goal of these funds from the board from the beginning is to deal with space capacity issues, as opposed to buying furniture, for instance. Not to say that that's not allowed, but that's the primary goal. Secondly, that the priority of the board would be modernizing or upgrading existing Sandy Unified charter facilities, and upgrading private facilities owned by a charter operator or a facility which has a long-term lease. So for instance, we have a number of publicly owned school sites that have charter schools sitting on them. And to be honest, I don't even know how many that they are, and that's one thing would be helpful to get from staff, is kind of a compilation of what is out there now. How many sites do we have charter schools on? What are their conditions, so forth? But like all our school sites, the average age of these public school sites are probably 40 or 50 years old, and they have major maintenance needs. For instance, we've discussed in the past O'Farrell School, which has, I think, some $15 million of major repair and maintenance, from leaking roofs to old pipes and so forth. We own that facility. Now, in that case, Prop S is already targeted to deal with those previous major maintenance issues. But going forward, understanding that we have facilities that we own, that are our assets, that are housing public school charter children, so that should be a top priority for Prop Z funds, as well as if you have a charter facility that is privately owned, that is serving charter kids, and I might even be, I don't know if we have any. For instance, the NTC property that the high-tech high is in, I don't know if they own any of those buildings or they're all leased, but anyhow, in some cases they're leased. The point is, those are essentially dedicated charter facilities that are serving public charter school children. So those would be a priority, or ones that there are long-term leases on. And I'm assuming the NTC property is an example. And I'm just using that as an example, not suggesting specific funding or otherwise. The third priority would be this would be for upgrading or enhancing of tenant improvements. Now, you have charter schools which maybe are not properly designed or as effectively designed to meet the needs of their students. And that can be classroom space, administrative space, PE space, nurse space, whatever. And the idea is that that would be a priority of funds as well, but understanding that if a facility has a 3-year lease, do we put hard dollars into improvements that when the lease is up, we don't get back, as opposed to if you put furniture, fixtures, or equipment, then you can get those back. So that needs to be balanced on the issue of how long the facility is leased. Once again, not to say we won't do it, but we should understand that ultimately we need to protect the taxpayer's investment as well. Then on top of this, we're talking about some specific policy goals on top of these. And number one is that, I said earlier, that there be a fair allocation, equitable distribution of Prop Z charter funds across a variety of charter schools. Once again, we have several schools who might say, hey, we're ready, we're more sophisticated, and we need this money now. And it doesn't mean we turn them down, but understanding that if we have about $30 million a year, and we have some 50 charters currently, that we need to at least be cognizant of the needs of a broad range of charters. The second point, and this is one specifically where there's a difference from what the charter subcommittee has currently recommended. The current charter rubric currently states that a charter is not eligible for funds until after its first year of operation. This recommendation is saying that you should not restrict or prohibit a charter from getting funds because it's in its first year of operation. Once again, every charter is different, every facility is different. The idea is, let's not use an arbitrary, they're not going to get funds until they're into year 2, because some schools there may be a need, or some schools they may have a building they just bought and they're in year 1, or maybe we buy a building in year 1 and lease it. So this specific item is inconsistent or contrary, or would overrule, if you will, the language that's in the current rubric. Now, I've not sat in all of the meeting or any of the meetings, but I understand there's been some debate over, well, do you serve the existing charters that have been around many years? Do you all the new guys who come in the door, do you serve them? And there's a bit of a conflict between those interests. So what this is saying is, let's look at each case, case by case, and not arbitrarily say that you have to be in business a year before you get any funds, because after all, if you only have a 5-year term, then you've limited the use of those funds as well. This next one this is an issue that we've discussed, in fact, most recently when Thrive was first being proposed for City Heights. The fact that certain communities have significant more charter schools than others. And there's no doubt that that has an impact on the overall academic environment of a cluster. Good, bad, indifferent, whatever. It has an impact. And so just saying that we should recognize that that's a factor, that when allocating funds, that we should be at least be cognizant of the fact that, for instance, if you have a traditional public school that's struggling, and nearby a charter school says they want significant funds for increased capacity, or that could be an additional factor to draw kids from that traditional public school. Now, ultimately, parents will vote with their feet, and I'm not saying that we should never give funds to a school that's in a saturated area, but it's based on, once again, going back to the goal of having success across the board. We have some schools that are struggling terribly with keeping kids within the community, and so this is a factor that we should examine, although it's a little harder to quantify. The next item is that because, once again, we only have some $30 million a year or so to spend on charters. This board has allocated now $62 million over the next 2 years in our recent bond issuance, or maybe we're going to later, or no, we did that last spring. The understanding that there are some projects which schools was very excited about, but could soak up a lot of the money, and you could have one school take the predominant amount of it. So the idea is to have some sort of matching fund requirement where the district will use Prop Z funds up to a certain amount, suggested $7.5 million, and then any above that amount, a charter school would help fundraise, or at the very least be multi-year phased in. So it's not using the overall majority of charter funds in 1 year for just one school or 2 schools. On the next page, and this is obviously, and this is already, I think, covered under Ed Code, but any materials, furniture, and equipment funded by Prop Z would become the property of San Diego Unified upon closure of a charter. And I believe that's already law, but the other aspect is, when landlords have leases of buildings, sometimes they say, well, if you can't pay your rent, we can come in, take whatever equipment and so forth in there. I think the point is that we need to make clear that if we're giving public taxpayers dollars for whether it's iPads or furniture, that the charter school in their lease with the building is not using that as items that can be seized, if you will, by the landlord upon a termination of a lease. That they can't offer that. We own that. The taxpayers owns that. This next item has to do with the purchasing of new land and facilities. One option we have is to purchase existing buildings. There are buildings out there and as we know, charter schools have been looking far and wide to try to find buildings that meet their needs. Sometimes there's conditional use permit issues. As we've seen, the leases that a lot of these charter schools have had to pay, maybe $20,000 to $30,000 a month, $250,000 to $300,000 a year just to open the door. So one option is for us to use Prop Z funds and identify buildings that we would purchase that would become a pool available when charter schools come forward, but with the understanding that we own this. Once again, this is district property, that they are not going to be turned over to either a nonprofit or a charter or private organization. The last items and this deals with this issue of district ownership, is if we use funds for used for purchasing private facilities, which be utilized for charter schools, once again, they should remain under district ownership. But the other thing that we should look at as an option is, even though charters themselves, we can only give a 5-year agreement. We can, in fact, there's a school district, I think it's Del Sol in California, which has a long-term lease with a charter operator for a facility. I think it's a 40-year lease. So we could potentially purchase buildings and have long-term lease with a charter operator. Now, obviously, each 5 years, we still would have to renew the charter. If the charter doesn't meet the academic or the financial or other needs of the students, we wouldn't renew the charter, and that charter could not occupy that space. But the idea is, because there's been some concern by some of the charter community that we're going to go and buy a building with, say, Prop Z money, and then after the charter's gone in 3 to 5 years, say, hey, we have this great building, why don't we sell it for whatever reason? Or, because we could do it with district asset, we could sell it for revenues, we could put another district use in it potentially, administrative use. So the idea is to give some guarantee to these charters that we're not going to be spending this money that's been targeted by the voters for charter schools, and then a future board says, oh, we want to use this for something else. One option might be, and it's not in here, is that we might even buy one or several buildings, and this is just an idea, that we would then lease them to an organization like California Charter Schools Association and say, hey, Kate, you have 3 buildings that can only be used for charter schools. And then when new charters come in, you can do some initial vetting with those charters. So, and say, here's some space available. Then, to be honest, then we're not necessarily deciding between a lot of hungry charters about, at least on the space option, and there's some additional vetting. And then, so anyhow, those are the overall issues. And once again, the idea is to support the work that the charter committee's done, but at the same time, ultimately, the board is responsible legally, and we have fiduciary responsibility to protect taxpayers' dollars, but at the same time, be flexible. Like this long-term lease option for charters would also potentially give them some ability to do some financing for tenant improvements and things such as that as well. So, Mr. Barrera, I don't know if you have additional comments to make.
And then we'll go to public comment after that.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Barnett. And, I wanted to second this idea that Mr. Barnett has laid out, especially because I agree that we need to vet the work of the Charter School Facilities Committee through the staff, and we need to vet some of these ideas back through the committee and the staff before the board takes action. So I support the basic spirit of what Mr. Barnett is proposing. I think there's some important policy issues contained in what Mr. Barnett has laid out, some of which I may agree with in whole, and some of which I might not agree with. But for me right now, the issue is not whether or not I agree with it. I want to hear from the committee and the staff and come back to us. But I think the basic concepts that Mr. Barnett are getting at are important, and it is important that the board gives, some clarity in terms of what our priorities are. And certainly the priority number one, it's why I think we came together with the charter community to put Prop Z on the ballot and to campaign for it, was this idea that we needed to help charter schools find space so we're not in this co-location dilemma. I think there are some other points here that are obviously important in recognizing, and I know that the Charter School Committee has grappled with these issues. We recognize that charter schools are in very different places. We've got some experienced schools that currently are on district-owned facilities, and those facilities need to be upgraded. We have existing schools that are bursting at the seams and want to go out and get space, and we've got newer schools that are coming on board, and their facility issues might not be clear yet, given where they are and where that school is in its history. And so we want to make sure that the pot of money that's allocated for charter schools, and the way I actually think about it is the pot of money that's allocated for charter school students who are part of the public school system, right? Is I mean that's why what the voters invested in was upgrading facilities and creating quality learning environments for all of our students in the public system, whether in district-run schools or charter schools. And the idea of sort of a per capita allocation of resources to charter schools is based on students. It's numbers of students. So I think what we're trying to do is balance the needs of charter school students in a variety of different settings and make sure that there's equity. And I think that's reflected here. Whether the matching funds and $7.5 million, I mean, those are, things that we want to hear, feedback from the committee. And obviously this issue of ownership is very important, and I know it's something that the Charter School Committee grapples with. The key point is what the voters invested in, the funds from this bond measure are supposed to go to serve the needs of public school students in perpetuity. They're not supposed to be funds that serve the needs of public school students for a period of time, and then basically those funds go back out onto the private market. That's not what people invested in when they said we want to pass a school bond. So we just need to make sure, and I know that there's existing legal requirements, but we need to make sure that every penny of Prop Z money that's spent to improve facilities in the public school system always remain within the public school system. And I think I appreciate the thoughtfulness that Mr. Barnett in the last point laid out. And we want to make sure that the charter, portion of that is preserved in perpetuity as well, so it's not a kind of a short-term, as Mr. Barnett laid out. We can't go out and buy a building and say that's for the charter schools, and then as soon as the charter schools, 5-year, petition period is up, then we sort of convert that back into something that's not available to charter school students. So I think these are a range of good ideas. Some are specific, some are open-ended, but it's really an attempt to suggest to the full board that we give some guidance to the committee about what our priorities are in the use of the Prop Z funds that are allocated for charter school students, and that we vet this through the staff and we get the input of the staff so that when recommendations come back from the committee to the board, we're hearing, the staff's analysis of those recommendations.
Before we go to public comment, is there a motion to direct the superintendent and staff to evaluate and come back to the board just for the first? We recommend that staff review and comment on spending recommendations for the charter committee prior to board action.
Yes.
Is that?
We will, yes, that would be a motion that from now on, staff, meaning legal, facilities, and whomever, review and comment any proposed spending of charter Prop Z funds prior to board action.
Okay. Second. Okay, so we have a motion. Let's go to public comment. Mary Bixby.
Thank you, and I'll be very brief. I'd like to begin by commending the superintendent and all of you. I know you face very difficult issues. I honestly and truly believe all of you are very committed to charter schools and trying to work in the best interest of our students. Truly, I believe that. And I enjoy working with all of you, even when it's a little challenging. I love it.
Why did you look at me when you said a little challenging?
Because you're challenging. I just want to assure you and clear up one piece. There isn't anything in this document that we haven't discussed. And many of these issues within the document, wait, I must say, I do not speak for the committee. Mary Bixby, founder, president, and CEO of Altus, coordinator for the Charter Collaborative. I am on the committee, but obviously I do not speak for the committee. I'm speaking for myself this evening. We discussed all of these issues, and some of them are very complex. Some of them are very simply resolved, are already resolved. We've already discussed them, and they're a part of how we're proceeding. From the very beginning, we have been very, very intense about trying to second guess what you would approve. We are aware of that. Am I going to really be timed to 3 minutes? Can you give me just a little more?
Okay.
I'll be good, honest. From the very beginning, we've been trying to second guess, and I know this might come as a shock, but you don't always agree. And so some of you give us a signal for one thing, some of you give us a signal for the other thing, like that time deal. You know, I was surprised when you wanted less. I thought you wanted more. Personally, it's confusing. So this is good. It would have been nice if we had this a year ago, but actually we were pretty good in figuring out where it is you were going. And these priorities are not opposed to the priorities we've considered. There's only one thing here, well, there's several things that need further discussion, but there's one thing that needs clarification. It's in the first paragraph. I'm afraid that there's a perception that is put out there that this committee has been operating in isolation without input from staff. That is very incorrect. I've been to all the meetings. I believe I've attended all of them. And staff has been there, as many as 11, 15. When I first started going to the meetings, there were like 11 of them or 12. And I said, are we paying for all these people to be here? I mean, they were all there. And it's been an average, I'd say, of 5 or 6. You'd have to ask Lee, but they've been consistently there. And they have educated us, and they have been side by side in the discussions. In fact, I think they've occupied as much time in discussion as we have. They have been actively involved. They have consciously drawn a line because the bond language says that we're supposed to recommend to you, and of course you have the final decision. We're all trying to be good stewards. We understand what this money means. We understand also that this is a first nationally and that we've got to do it right. So we've been very conscious of trying to do everything right and create a model that clearly articulates what our goals are and how we're going to operate, because there's going to be people picking this up nationally. So please don't walk away with the impression. We invite you to come to our committees and ask the district staff. They have been there, they have been involved, they have tried to follow protocols as we make the protocols up, but we've invited them to be involved, and I don't think that we've proceeded with approvals of any of the projects. We have a lot of planning grants. Our charter schools, as you say, many of them are not sophisticated. A couple of projects have been shovel ready. They're ready to go. They've been worked on for months. Just one more couple. But many of our charter schools...
Please just wrap up your remarks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Many of our charter schools need time to come up with proposals that really will go through the facilities department, and which the facilities department think are prudent and in the best interest of the students and the district. And we're very conscious of that. So please take my word for it. Staff has been involved. If you want them to be involved at a greater level, again, I only speak for myself, but I welcome that. I trust them. They're good, and they have helped us. And I think that together, along with the board, we can do some wonderful things for kids and charter schools. So I appreciate all you're doing, and please rest assured, don't go off being concerned that we're squandering money or being irresponsible or doing anything foolish. And yes, some of our discussions become very passionate, but we are very committed people, and we only model our betters and do exactly what our board does.
Thank you very much for your remarks.
Thank you.
Jonathan Dean, 3 minutes.
Steal a copy from her there. Good evening, board members and Mrs. Martin. I just want to kind of reiterate a little bit what Mary said, especially on the first one about school administration, San Diego Unified School Administration being involved. They're involved very heavy and gave us ideas, gave us suggestions when we were off track. I'm not on the board, on the committee. I was there at every meeting, though. We got hundreds of hours into this and subcommittees. And I actually agree with a lot what Scott said actually verbally. I'm probably one of the more conservative persons in the audience when it comes to the charter school, because I am very conservative when it comes to Taxpayers Association. I mean, I know I had a long conversation with Greg Stein about this issue last over dinner a month ago. I'm real concerned with some of the points here, because I think once I explain them, you'll say, whoa, you hit yourself in the head. We've discussed all these. But I look at Scott's, and I don't disagree with any, but I think once you talk it out, you'll say, well, that doesn't make sense. So I'll tell you what, if this was adopted, you'd have nothing done on district property. It'd be all off district property. You got to really think about what this states, and I don't disagree with, but think about what this states. The first one, first priority, cohabitation. Well, first of all, that's set in Prop 39. People can still cohabitate. I actually disagree with cohabitation. I think it should be illegal. I don't even agree with it between all of us. I know that's not popular in the charter community, but it's disruptive for kids. But that's set in state law on cohabitation. But then you go, that's your first priority, and then putting a cap at $7.5 million. Ladies and gentlemen, you'll have nobody that's on a district site invest any money into San Diego Unified property. And I haven't talked to anybody from facilities, but you can ask them tonight. A minor restoration is going to be from $10 to $20 million. Well, a district is going to split 7.5 and say, okay, I'll pay $2 million. None of them have that in reserves. Most of them don't have them in reserves, and then say, okay, it goes legally, can it go into district pot for district property, and then you charge us 3% gross on that facility, on that taxpayer money that was just paid for that property. I mean, these projects are going to be from $15 million to $25 million. A Farrell's project is asking for $19 million. Okay, Scott brought up a very good point, though, and I've argued this. How do you look at what's should be allocated to charter schools? Lo and behold, San Diego Unified came out with a form about 10 months ago, and it basically, I believe, laid it out very well. When the voters voted this in, it was at 12 to 12.5%. When you raise that equation, what you did is you looked all back at the charter schools and said, this is the percentage these charter schools had. This was ADA. Farrell is the largest seat-based charter school. So when you break down all the schools, we had 11% of the students. That would actually be $22 million according to your estimations. If you recalculate it, it's $24 million on this year's. So Farrell's actually asking for less with a $19 million. Another point that I'd just like to show you about projects. We've been in this project for 18 months. The district is just now meeting with DSA tomorrow to hopefully come out. So if you want to spend 85% of your money, which is legally required in 3 years for a proposition, if you're looking at just the charter portion, not all of it, but the charter portion, there's no way that's going to be done, even as of now. If you approve tonight a project to be completed, and it started tonight, you couldn't get out of DSA from 12 months to 18 months. It just couldn't happen.
Thank you.
Okay. I also wanted to point out the demographics of Farrell and why it was chosen. It was unanimously voted on to fund for the $19 million.
Okay. Thank you. It's my understanding that the motion on the floor is just to recommend that staff review and comment on anything that comes from the Charter Committee. The motion tonight is not to adopt any of these specific points at this first reading, especially in light of the fact that most board members did not even see these points until just now. Any other board comment? Yeah, Trustee Evans.
Yeah, I mean, I think the point that's been made about that the board has the ultimate responsibility is really important, because whenever there's an advisory committee, sometimes the idea is, whether it's the district advisory council or whatever, we've made this decision, and so therefore the board needs to do it. I mean, we the elected officials have to make that final decision. I mean, I think a lot of these things are really great. It's really important that the facilities remain in district ownership. We can't be taking public taxpayer funds and giving them basically to a private entity, no matter whether it's a nonprofit and so forth. just a couple of details. I mean, it was brought up about the 7.5 million. I also just mathematically wondering about sort of a gradual scale too, if you did adopt a number, because obviously, okay, we'll do a $7.4 million project versus 7.7. There might be a 50% a 25% donation if it's above 5 million or something like that. And then on the final point here about the 5-year, the extended leases and making sure that it stays within charter uses, I'm not sure exactly how we do this, but we do have to be aware that when we're talking about long-term, 10 years, 12 years, 20 years, that a lot of things can change, and there could be a completely different picture in terms of what's going on with charter schools. And I know on our basic propositions we have that. We put in a project on there, and then something changes in terms of this type of facility is no longer viable due to new technology or something. I mean, I think the same thing. We just have to be careful that we don't completely pin ourselves into something being in the very long term for charter use if it turns out that the charter population has gone down or something like that. So I just think we should be careful about that. But the main concern I have as a board is what's the time frame that the charter has to be in operation, and this is kind of related to what we were talking about tonight in terms of approving charters. And I know you said, Scott, about, there's sort of arbitrary numbers, and we shouldn't have to stick to arbitrary numbers. But yet we do have one milestone, which is a charter is in operation for 5 years. They might have had an up year and a down year and a good year and a bad year, and we have sort of a full picture financially, academically, and so forth about how they're functioning after 5 years. And again, when we're expending very valuable taxpayer money, I have a problem if we really believe that this could be a good thing, when obviously the best predictor of future success is past success. So, since we're talking about this as a board, and we're, the original language from the committee seemed to be sort of pre-Prop Z charter versus post-Prop G, and kind of a 1-year timeline. This money is over a long period of time, and so a charter that's been in existence in 2 or 3 years will in 2 or 3 years be at the 5-year mark, and the ones coming in and so forth on sort of a rotating basis. So, I mean, it's arbitrary, but my thinking on it, and this is what we need to discuss as a board, would be more along the lines of a 5-year minimum for expending these funds, which doesn't mean that couldn't be overturned or an exception made or something like that, but there would have to be a much higher bar, I would say, if the school hasn't been in existence that long. I mean, we certainly have, and not that we should get into specific places, but we certainly have, places like Gompers and O'Farrell and High Tech High and so forth that have been around for quite a while, and we know that they're going to stick around and keep doing what they're doing, and that's those are safer investments for our kids. So I don't know, I mean, since this is a discussion, I don't know what other board members think about this sort of time frame.
Let me just give you some of the thought process behind it. And as you know, the biggest challenges we have, I think, are some of the most difficult decisions we have is Prop 39 co-location issues, right? We hate those. Sometimes they turn out great, but as soon as some of the staff says, we're recommending you use 7 classrooms from this school, elementary, middle, high, every alarm goes off, from the parents to the teachers to sometimes the community to the students. And if you have a new charter, I don't know why this chair is that Mary Bixby doing sabotaging? No, I'm carrying Mary. If you have a brand new charter and they come in and they don't have space identified, or they see a space that they have to spend $20,000 to $25,000 a month for, which is the going rate in looking at these charters,
and they say, okay, we want Prop 39. Well, one thing we can do with this money, and when Mr. Dean said you're not going to be able to spend this money quick enough, we can buy buildings. We can buy office buildings. And those office buildings can be used for charter capacity. And so you could have a charter that comes in and says, well, we don't, they meet every criteria, but they want a Prop 39, they don't have the space, and we could have these facilities available for first-year charters. And that's why I'm saying, I don't know. We need to look at that's why I don't want to be arbitrary, because that is our most difficult decision, and we're going to have Prop 39 situations coming up again. The other side is my goal, my hope is that ultimately between traditional public schools where we have maybe charters already existing alone that we maybe can add capacity, if not just for that charter, but have a charter campus potentially where 2 or 3 charters might be able to sit on a traditional public school site, but that will take investment, that will take DSA, that will take 2 or 3 years to go through the process and build it. But at the same time, these office buildings, that can happen quickly. In fact, this is not before us tonight, but the proposal, there were some 7 or 8 proposals that came out of the charter committee for spending Prop Z money. One of them was from Adeo, I believe that's Ms. Bixby's group, to buy a building for $6.25 million to use Prop Z money. That's easy. And then another one was $19 million for O'Farrell to expand capacity on O'Farrell. That's on top of the $15 million we're doing for the Prop S money. And then the rest were mostly, there were planning grants for schools to do their own master plan, just like we do a master plan before we do architecture drawings and all that, and have a charter school. So the point is, with that $19 million, we could buy 3 office buildings. I'm not saying we shouldn't fund O'Farrell. What I'm saying is, and you could potentially cite 3 different charter schools with that same amount of money buying 3 office buildings. So that's where I'm saying, if our goal, if our number one concern has been capacity and avoiding the cohabitation, the Prop 39 issues as far as facility needs, we can be creative in this. And that's why I'm suggesting, that we look at it a case-by-case basis and not just say it has to be 1 year or 3 years or 5 years, because I don't know what's going to come up in the future. All I know is that there's going to be challenges in the most flexibility we have. Now, I do believe that we do need to act on these recommendations probably next month. And that's why we need to have the feedback, because if we are going to go ahead with these, then we need to know, if we're going to buy a building for Adeo Charter, do we own it or do they want to own it? And that's a key issue. Are we going to spend 2/3 of 1 year's Prop Z charter money on one school on O'Farrell? Or not. Those are decisions and then how does that affect the opportunity to buy other facilities? So that's why these discussions are important, and then at the same time, the Charter Committee deserves a response on whether or not we are going to fund these or modify them or whatever. So that's why I'm just saying the time issue, I understand what you're saying. There's a certain logic in saying, we don't want to give money to a school that's going to disappear in 2 years. Now, of course, if we own the building, if they go out of business, then we don't lose anything. We still have the site. If we gave them a lot of money for, computers and other equipment, then you could say, that's a waste of money. On the other hand, if we own the equipment when it's done, then maybe it's not. So I think we just need to discuss, and there's not a right answer. It's just these are all the discussions that we wanted to start tonight and have staff input in and the charter community.
And I understand the point because obviously when the cohabitation issue, it's going to be new or newer schools. The established schools are not going to all of a sudden come to us for a cohabitation proposal. At the same time, it's weighing out, like you're saying, we're going to make this investment in this new uncertain school as opposed to helping this school that we know is working and succeeding. Yeah, we could still own the building or whatever, but we would have expended those funds in that direction rather than something else, which I think is what you're saying is looking at a case-by-case basis. I would still just like to have a higher bar that, you know, we want to do this for schools that are established and successful. And then if we find a special need, whether it's related to cohabitation or something like that, that we make an exception for the benefit of the schools. So I'm just bringing that up because you've written this down, and this is going back to the committee, and then we'll ultimately decide on the policy, right?
Any other board member comments?
I just concur with John in terms of the rationale increasing the years invested in a proven track record of success. That just makes sense to me all day long. And then I just agree with John in terms of investing in a proven track record of success. That just makes sense to me all day long. And then, unless I misunderstood, if anything happens with the charter, that reverts back to the district anyway, correct? I mean,
That's well, we believe.
under Prop Z.
We believe so, but I mean, there has been some discussion by some charters of having some degree of title of facilities, and I don't know how that works. All I know is I don't want to even consider that idea as something that as a safeguard of the taxpayers, but it's something that's being proposed without getting into the details by at least one of the proposals before us of the ADEO. So we probably need to get legal response as well as what can we do or as well.
Okay, if there are no other comments, please vote on the motion, which is to recommend that staff review and comment on spending recommendations from the Charter Committee prior to board action. And that passes unanimously.
Oh, just one comment, my friend Mr. Dean, who I have great respect for, the comment about if we look at a pro rata share of Prop Z money for students, we have 130+ thousand students in this district, and including charter students, and when we don't divvy up the $6 billion we're going to spend the next 25 years or so on Prop S and Prop Z and say, well, every student at their school site gets X thousands of dollars. It's not going to work that way. And Prop Z was never intended by this board to say it's going to be, the dollars are going to be allocated pro rata per student. Now, it's an interesting exercise, but that was certainly not, nor was that stated in the ballot as well by the voters. So, if at the end of the day, some schools some people say, well, this school has gotten this, and why is that? And that's not as fair, and others get that. But, that is certainly not the way that this board has indicated it's going about the spending of Prop Z, to make sure that every charter student at their facility has an equal spending of the $300 million, except for their site discretionary funds as well, which charters can and use for computers or whatever purposes.
Trustee Barnett.
I'd just like to move items G1 and G2.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second, and also appreciation to Mr. Bauer for sitting through our entire meeting.
Okay. Item G1 is a resolution in the matter of authorizing the sale of refunding bonds not to exceed $320 million of general obligation refunding bonds. And G2 is a public hearing and authorization to submit waiver requests to the California Department of Education regarding education code requirements for sale of surplus property, Stevens Elementary School, Hale Junior High School, and Bay Terraces number 11, and adoption of resolution approving submittal of waivers. Okay. Let's go ahead and have the presentation, and then we'll take public comment. Superintendent Cindy Martin.
Okay, this is, since you moved both at the same time, we have, okay, the presentation around Prop MM, general obligation refunding bonds, and Prop S, new money general obligation bonds. We have a short presentation. I think Jenny is going to come. Jenny Salkeld. Or maybe that was Lee, I'm not sure if it was you or Lee that wanted to talk about this. Okay. This is a follow-up to the board workshop that we had, and we also had a first reading of this as required by AB 182. The first reading was on the December 17th board meeting, and now follow-up tonight for action. It looks like this. While they're pulling up the item, just for the board members to know, this is the action to refinance the bonds at a lower tax rate, saving taxpayer dollars.
Thank you, Superintendent Martin, and good evening, President Beiser and board trustees. As Cheryl pulls up the presentation, as Superintendent Martin mentioned, this is a follow-up item. It's our second reading to the board presentation that we made on December 17th. And this is a condensed version of it. At the time on December 17th, we shared with the board the opportunities that we have. We've always taken a very proactive, collectively as a district and as a board, a proactive approach in managing our debt. So we shared some opportunities that we could do some refunding with our Prop MM obligations, which would open up some capacity for us to go to the market with a Prop S issuance. And with that too, also we introduced a financial structure with our underwriting team that was present there on the 17th of actually introducing, and similar to the Prop C, the technology funds, and bringing current interest bonds into a program historically under Prop S that has been mainly capital appreciation bonds. So we highlighted that structure as well. And what you see on this specific slide are the refunding opportunities with Prop MM series that range from 2003 to 2005. And that's one resolution that we do have in the packet today that will need to be voted separately from a separate resolution. So we actually have two resolutions. The second is the new money GO bond for Prop S, which is not to exceed a par value of $70 million. As noted there, that would be a component of current interest bonds and capital appreciation bonds. Then this next slide highlights graphically the financial model that is based on assumptions that we shared last month as well, primarily with assessed values being one of those. The assessed values range for the first year of 3%, second year 4%, the third year and on of 5%. As you can see here, on the front end of the financial model, specifically the areas in purple, are where those savings from the Prop MM refunding will allow us to introduce those current interest bonds into the technology fund, in essence. The tail end of that model is where we would bring in the capital appreciation bonds for the new monies for the infrastructure deal for Prop S. And also, this demonstrates the tax rate promise that we have under Prop S to maintain the debt service for Prop MM and Prop S together. And this next slide, as we highlighted last month, our bond counsel went into detail about AB 182, which became effective on January 1st. And now we have a requirement to bring 2 consecutive board presentations, a first reading and a second one today as an example for action, which is a new requirement under AB 182. Now, if I could note too, we've always as a district and as a board been very proactive with the requirements that are now noted under AB 182, and we've been very transparent in that regard. So we're just continuing with our current practice that we have been doing for many years. A couple items I'd like to pull out or note here are the CABs, or the current appreciation bonds that are included in this model, are limited to a 25-year term. So we've got all the different check marks saying that we are compliant, that we do have a minimum interest rate of 8%. And that the capital appreciation bonds also have a callability feature, and that the debt ratio is at 4-to-1. A maximum, right? Okay. Maximum. Not maximum. Sorry, and all the other key components as noted there. And the final slide is our next steps, specifically with tonight. It's our second reading, and we're bringing the 2 resolutions, and as bond counsel reminded me on my way up here that they both have to be voted separately, one being the refunding for Prop MM, and the second one being for the Prop S issuance. And then we also have all the other legal documents, our paying agent agreement, our bond purchase agreement. That item specifically does call out our underwriting team, which has our senior, we have Ruth Pan here tonight, she's with Goldman Sachs, and then our 2 co-managers, which is Loop Capital and Stifel Nicholas. And then also we have our escrow agreement and our preliminary official statement. And I'd like to note on that one that at this point the preliminary official statement is very preliminary, and we're showing that to the board and having your input and review, but we will be bringing a more comprehensive preliminary official statement back in March because of the timing that we have to price these bonds in late March and April. We've got a few financial deliverables with the governor's proposal, with also our second interim that we need to factor that in. So we'll be bringing that back to the board as a separate item standalone of an updated preliminary official statement.
So then we need to have a motion on the refunding and a vote on that, and then we need a motion on the Prop S, and then we need a vote on that.
And then all the other documents that we have there.
Okay, would all the other documents be a third motion?
No, it could fall in one or two. I'm going to have Eugene Clark Herrera, who's with ORIC. He's our bond counsel.
Good evening, Board and Superintendent. Just to respond to your procedural question, you have 2 resolutions authorizing the issuance of bonds and approving forms of related documentation and actions by staff. Each resolution approves the legal documents that associate with the bonds being authorized thereby. So by taking up the resolutions separately and approving them separately, you will be approving the forms of legal documents within those respective actions.
Okay.
I'll move first the first resolution refunding the GO bonds under Prop MM.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, let's go to public comment. We have Citizen and Sylvia Alvarez. Yes. Okay, I apologize. Sylvia Alvarez is not up yet. You're on G2. So for G1, we have a public testimony request form turned in by Citizen.
Not here.
Okay, then let's move. Any comments or questions on the first motion? Okay, please vote. And that passes unanimously. Do I have a motion for the second?
Yes.
Okay, the motion has been made and seconded. Any comments or questions? Okay, please vote. And that passes unanimously. So then that concludes our business.
I thought she was going to speak.
That concludes our business with item G1. So now let's move on to item G2, the public hearing and authorization to submit waiver request to the California Department of Education regarding education code requirements for the sale of surplus property Stevens, Hale, and Bay Terrace. Adoption of resolution approving submittal of waiver. This is an action item and a public hearing. Superintendent Cindy Martin.
Thank you. This is a request to submit a waiver to the California Department of Education for the property that we discussed on November 19th, Stevenson, and we're actually including Bay Terraces as well, and submitting the waiver to the California Department of Education, which will allow us to have the flexibility that we need, that we're seeking in a public competitive RFP process, and this, if the waiver is approved, it'll give us the flexibility we need to negotiate the property. And I don't know if Midori Wong wants to add any detail. She's available for comment, but something that we had discussed, and we're asking for approval to go ahead with the waiver tonight to the California Department of Education.
Okay. Before we go on to board member comments or questions, let's hear from public testimony. Sylvia Alvarez.
Now it's your turn.
Come on down.
Right, hello. Happy New Year. This is Sabrina Hanlon. She's the new para-president. So, unfortunately, CSEA, and I'm speaking on behalf of all three chapters, is opposed to the waiver as presented. CSEA was not provided the appropriate and necessary documentation, and CSEA has a right to know the purpose and intent. We were noticed just before break. Originally, when I looked at it over break, I did email Ms. Carbucci, and I said, I don't think OTBS has a problem. The field office was closed, so all of us everyone was on break, so you're supposed to respond by the 31st. So now it appears to us to be rushed and last minute. And last minute communications don't render positive results, so that's our position. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any board member comment?
This makes it easier or gives more flexibility to meet the board's desire to sell these properties, to put it simply. So therefore, I'll be voting no.
Okay, so therefore.
It's my understanding that they were noticed on December 12th, and I do acknowledge the fact that that was right before the winter break. Is there a sense of urgency on the matter? Yes. Okay, can we hear from staff, please? Yeah.
We're seeking action on this item tonight because the deadline to submit the applications to CDE is this Thursday. Oh, okay. In order to be heard in their March meeting. And just so you're aware, we sent letters to all of the bargaining units, and we received support from 2 of the units and a neutral stance from 1 of the units, and we just heard very late this afternoon of CSEA's opposition. We will continue to work with them to communicate the purpose and intent behind seeking these waivers, and we are optimistic that we can try to work out a resolution.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Okay, please vote. Okay, that item passes 4-1 with Trustee Barnett in opposition. Okay, do we have any other public comment, non-agenda? Okay, with that, I call this meeting adjourned.
President Beiser. President Beiser, did you just conclude your first board meeting? What?